Hello and welcome to the Election Corner on One Man Think Tank. This time I'm bringing you my 2020 presidential election prediction for September 9th, 2020 to September 16th, 2020. So that week, this will be the second presidential election prediction for September. Now, as you can see, I've already filled in the safe seats. I normally also will do any likely seats which are close to safe, but if it's a flip, I don't in any way I don't put it as safe, I rather leave it as likely. But since apparently the algorithm demands you people need to be here for 5 seconds for the view to count, I'm now putting in the likely seats because this is such an easy race for Joe Biden to win. In my initial prediction map, he wins. So Joe Biden starting out from a significant advantage of almost 289 guaranteed seats, while Donald Trump only has 125. Donald Trump is practically destined to lose. However, here's why you should keep watching. If, for whatever reason, two of these states, in any combination really, fail to go for Biden, Biden loses. And while it's unlikely, in an election year you can never really tell how things are going to go, especially when they need to be flipped from an incumbent to a challenger. Donald Trump has made this process very easy on Joe Biden, insulting all of his key demographics in one way or another, as well as making his classical Republican base of suburban white voters feel very uncomfortable about voting for him, while Joe Biden comes across as a warm blanket to your suburban white, which, in practice, leaves you with the following seats up for contention, really. Maine's 2nd District, Nebraska's 2nd District, Iowa, Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Texas. We'll go through each of these and distinguish which ones are up for grabs as toss-ups, and then I will lean them either Republican or Democratic, because at the end of the day, you can predict which way a seat is going, at the very least by a small amount. A true toss-up state is incredibly unlikely to ever happen. So, let's do some likelies. First off, we have Ohio. Donald Trump... Ohio's always been a sticky wicket for the Republicans, and especially for Donald Trump, because Ohio is one of those states that the Republicans were supposed to have locked down a while ago. In fact, it is in many ways the prototypical model of what was supposed to happen to Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and what's kind of happening to Iowa. But this trend seems to at the very least have been stopped by the Biden candidacy, or might have just been a temporary blip in the road caused by the Hillary Clinton campaign. Ohio remains a heavily Republican state, but for now is always up for contention by the Democrats, and Joe Biden's doing well there. Many people will know the name Sherrod Brown, as he's the only statewide Democratic representative from Ohio, and he typically polls very well and has won re-election won his elections at least twice. Joe Biden carries similar clout, and when he's and we don't have many polls from Ohio. I need to clarify that. We're not getting regular polling out of there, just enough to show Donald Trump is pretty consistently in the lead. However, with how well Joe Biden is doing in the more Rust Belt areas of the Rust Belt states, there's a chance Ohio could be a lot more contentious than we're seeing. What Trump is currently losing voters, but they aren't going to Biden. So, Trump remains the favorite. However, if those voters start going to Biden, Ohio is going to be looking a lot more blue a lot quicker. Meanwhile, Iowa is in a similar situation. I know it's getting more contentious, but we're having that same issue of Trump voters are leaving Trump, but they're not going to Biden. We need to start seeing that trend. As long as Trump remains ahead, even if it's showing him at 46 and Biden at 44, as long as Biden's not winning those voters, he's not got a good chance of winning the state. This is up from a leans in the last prediction. Nebraska's 2nd District, however, remains leans. It is not in the toss-up category, though, for one simple reason. It's not that contentious of an area right now, because Republicans have a long-standing history of winning. Obama won Omaha, but Biden's not doing as well. If the Democrats fixate on this one particular section for whatever reason and pump some money in, then you know what? Nebraska's 2nd District could be in play, especially since they've got a pretty contentious House race there for Nebraska's 2nd District. But they don't seem to be doing that. As such, it leans Republican, but it's a lot more contentious with Joe Biden's campaign putting a little bit of money in, not as much as they should be, but also polling well there. The last state that's on the undecided toss-up list is Georgia. Biden is not doing well in Georgia, especially when compared to how the Democrats are doing in the Senate race. Comparing a Senate race to a presidential race is not the same thing. It's not apples to oranges. It's more like honeydew to watermelons. Generally the same area, but if you cut them open and look deeply, they're pretty different. But you can use one as a barometer for the other. Right now we're seeing the Republican incumbent losing. He's lost a lot of support, and they've gone to that middle section I keep mentioning of undecided voters who have left the Republican side but have yet to decide if they're going to the Republican side or the Democratic side, or if they're staying home. And by default, they'll either stay home or go to the Republican side, meaning as long as the Republican's in the lead, because they came from the Republican, he will win. Sheer fact. Joe Biden is not polling ahead in Georgia. He has not been. He's been polling close to Trump, and Trump is not doing amazingly. But unlike states like Ohio and Iowa, where there's a notable differential between their two polling numbers, Georgia, Joe Biden is inching up a bit. Oh, and also their poll numbers have been stagnant here as well. Joe Biden is inching up a bit and steadily increasing, while Trump is remaining in that mid-40s area of about 45 to 46%, sometimes polling much higher, but Joe is starting to catch him. And thus you're left with your actual toss-ups. So if you want to stop here, these are the ones you can count as toss-up. Texas, Florida, North Carolina, and Maine's 2nd District. All of these are the ones that are in real contention right now, but we can indicate which way they're going. So let's start off with an easy one, Maine's 2nd District, which right now is tilt Republican. Donald Trump won Maine's 2nd District in 2016. He has a slight chance of winning it again, and I know I've been saying for a while, Joe Biden has had a really good chance of winning Maine's 2nd District, a historically blue district, but it seems there's been some more Republican backlash coming from Maine's 2nd District, at least in the news I've read. So for right now, I'm going to be a little bit bearish on the idea Joe Biden wins it, and instead go assume the incumbent has a slight advantage here. To make things a little bit better for the Democrats, we'll do North Carolina, where Joe Biden holds the tilt. North Carolina is a state that is rapidly shifting blue. It's the southern equivalent of Arizona in this case, a state that was supposed to drift blue over the next 3 or 4 election cycles, but has now just rapidly pushed in the other direction. There's a solid chance we could see Arizona and North Carolina see their state houses flip to blue as well. North Carolina could become a blue trifecta, while Arizona, the governor's not up for another 2 years. But here's the key factor in North Carolina. Joe Biden is not doing as well as the other Democrats on the ticket. The governor, far and away, is polling, I think, 13 points ahead of his opponent for re-election. The governor is a Democrat, so that basically guarantees that seat for the Democrats. The Republican, in the Senate race, we're seeing Cal Cunningham, who's challenging Tom Tillis, the incumbent Republican, pull ahead. So the Democrats look likely to take North Carolina's Senate seat. Looking at the presidential election, we're seeing low numbers for Trump, low numbers in this case being lower than 50%. They're both hovering around the mid-40s, so between 44 and 46%. Sometimes Joe's ahead, sometimes Trump's ahead. But when you look at the other races and how they'll pull in other voters, this gives Joe Biden a slight advantage in the race. Just because if the Democrats are sweeping the other 2 races, there's a good chance they're going to sweep North Carolina as well. Now down to Florida. Florida is actually a lean state, but it's a toss-up for multiple reasons. One, there's a lot of voter suppression that could happen that could decreased Democratic turnout, but also Joe Biden is polling well in Florida. He's polling really well, but Trump is also polling quite well. And I've gone back and forth on whether or not Florida is likely and thus out of the toss-up category, or leans and thus in it. And in this case, it's leans and in it, for one main reason. Joe Biden's numbers are stagnating at about 48%, and we have seen a slight uptick in Trump getting undecided voters. Nothing super contentious right now, but I need to be a little bit future-proofy here. If Trump is winning the undecided voters back, for lack of a better term, that could cost Joe Biden Florida. He's still favored to win right now with the leans, but Trump's winning those voters back. And lastly, Texas, the state that no Republican wants to be a toss-up. And right now it is tilt Republican. Democrats don't seem likely to win the Senate race there, however, they do seem to have an increasing chance of taking the Texas State House, turning the biggest, reddest state purple, which would, in size of population and economic output, sorry, Alaska. Oh, actually, you're not even red. You've got a mixed legislature. Never mind. So, yeah, biggest, reddest state. Texas is going to, if its state house flips, it's not the biggest, reddest state anymore. Republicans can't gerrymander. Republicans can't do voter suppression. Democrats make it harder to close polling places. And the trend we have seen since 2010, once a state goes Democratic, they don't go back. Which is a very weird thing to watch. The Republican Party has remained rooted in the conservative politics of about 2014. There will be people who make jokes about them being in the 18th century, but about the platform really hasn't changed in about 6 years. In that time, gay marriage has been legalized. Multiple states have extended many protections to transgender activists. We've had 2 series of Black Lives Matter protests. At least 3 major cities are defunding their police departments, and many, many other things. And not even to mention the wide variety of economic programs the Democrats are proposing. The Democrats are building a bigger tent. Your average American approves of homosexuality and gay marriage and transgenderism now in every single state, while your average Republican does not. Thus, especially when you look at their platform, so all the ones who do are being pushed out into the bigger tent of the Democratic Party. Eventually, when the Republican Party either liberalizes to counter this, or they fade into obscurity and the Democrats split, we'll start seeing the Democrats losing states again. But for right now, Texas is basically on its way to turning blue. And the real big factor here is, and I saw an amazing comment on a previous video I'm going to reference, it's not just immigration. It's the fact that immigrants are getting wealthier and moving into suburban neighborhoods. People are seeing the groups that the GOP is demonizing, especially immigrants. That's part of the reason why the Southwest has become so sapphire as of late. You can demonize Mexican immigrants all you like, but when you have your suburban white voter, who's the swing vote in Texas, really going, wait a second. He's saying he hates my neighbor. He's saying he hates my student's teacher. He's saying he hates the babysitter. Or in some cases, he's saying he hates my spouse. Or my child's girlfriend or boyfriend. That's how you change people's minds. It's just the interaction and seeing it's not scary. And that's what's really costing them the Texas suburbs. Also, and the same thing happens with gays and transgendered people. The more people see them, the less afraid they become. So what's happening now in Texas is Republicans are low at the end of the day, not because of Trump, but because we're seeing Texas change. Trump is just speeding this whole effect up because he speaks, for lack of a better term, the Republican truth a lot more openly than anyone else. This leaves us with our final map. 333 votes for Joe Biden and 205 votes for Donald Trump, with a solid chance Joe Biden could pick up Texas and Maine's 2nd District. Or Trump could pick up North Carolina. So, there you have it. If you liked the video, click the like button and subscribe also, and click the notification bell so you can see when new content comes out. If you have opinions on this, drop a comment down below. I always love hearing your opinions. And I have a Twitter now. I always keep forgetting to add that. It is at OneManThinkTan1, which you can find the link down in the description below. Otherwise, as always, have a wonderful day.